Are you a technician who wants to set yourself apart? Then the Trusted Technician podcast is for you. I'm Derek Hoferter, coach and trainer at SBE. And on this podcast, we will have experienced HVAC coaches and trainers, as well as top performing technicians, all sharing their tips and strategies to help you be more successful. Welcome back to another episode of the Trusted Technician podcast. Today's guest comes from up north in the U.S. We've got Josh from East Coast Heating and Air. They're located in New Hampshire. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Derek. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. Josh, you're a comfort consultant there. So we're talking about systems and people needing new systems. But before we get into that, Josh, how did you end up in HVAC?
I ended up in HVAC because my brother actually has been with the company for, about 17 years from now. And like most people, I was sort of just twiddling my thumbs, not really going anywhere in life. And he just said, "Hey, you want to make a change?" I was in northern Maine. He was still down here in New Hampshire when he got out of the military. So I said, yeah, why not? So moved down, lived with him for about a year. He got me into this, started with install as his helper, trained through there, went to service a little bit. And 2019, that's when I took over this position, comfort consultant.
I love that. I love when there's the career progression.
Yeah.
Yeah. The career progression I love when I hear that. And we've had a few other on this podcast in your position, that now are kind of focused on the selling side of systems that have done the whole career progression too. So I really like that. What have you enjoyed the most about HVAC?
From an install perspective, just everything's different for us anyways. Rarely is everything the exact same. Each house could be different. So angles, things like that. Ductwork's more my bread and butter. It's what I got into. So I actually enjoy that. I don't want to say it's mindless, but it's almost like adult Legos. So sometimes you just put some headphones in, and that is always nice, except when you're in the attic, middle of July. But that was my favorite part. And then I'd say for, the sales side, just different conversations with different people. Doesn't even have to be HVAC. Just learn something new about somebody. Cool, bring it home to the wife. This is what I learned today. So that's been nice over the last 5.5 years.
Yeah, that's great. What would you say is either, a challenge you've had to overcome, or even like what is kind of like the current challenges that you're experiencing with your role?
Good question. Bit of a high horse, the first couple of years, right? With what the industry was, especially with COVID. I think maybe a lot of people talked about this, but in the early years, it actually boomed, like the HVAC side, at least where we are. People were staying home, so they needed to do something with their money. And now they realized their third floor office was 98 degrees when their, away office was nice and comfortable at work. So in the first few years of me in this position, just progression, like each year got better and better. So I'd say now the challenge is I think things are changing a little bit, which is why I'm heavily focusing on the process. So I need to change what I did in the early years, thinking that it worked. But I would say the biggest challenge is for us, people hold on to their money, willing to shop around. How do I overcome that? They got me in the home. That to me right now is my biggest challenge.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Tell me a little bit more, because you have that experience of doing service and being in the field, and then you've kind of moved into this role of doing the sales. When you were doing service, what was your relationship to selling systems? Were you a selling tech? Would you turn it over to someone else that would sell, or kind of what was your relationship there?
Great question. To be fair, I think we started SBE in 2019, so before my time, but I took over when this change in SBE happened because we knew what that was going to do. It was actually kind of a perfect time we're going to bring in you who were grooming anyways, but then start with these newer pricings, things like that. So I actually never went it was strictly just install service. Conversations with customers were nice because we're in their home, but it wasn't with an objective or a thought or, an opportunity to do anything. Because I think we started in about 2019.
Okay.
With SBE.
So then you're in the home, you're kind of there for that objective. If they wanted a new system, that wasn't
just turnover. Call the guy who used to be in my position.
Yeah. So you would turn it over. Okay. So now this is a great question because, there's a lot of different people that listen to this podcast. Some of them are selling techs. Some of them are techs that don't sell and they need to turn it over. We've got comfort consultants, service managers. different companies have different ways of approaching this. Now that you're kind of in that position where you're now going out there, if it does get turned over, if it's a marketed lead, could you just talk to me a little bit about if there is kind of like a turnover or a handover or just something like that? Like, do you now know things that you wish you had known maybe back then, or would you do anything differently now that you focus on the sales side of when you were on the service side? Like if you were in a position of turning a lead over?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because if I did, if I did certain things back then that would have helped my guy at that time, like sometimes I wish like now my guys help me do that, help my process through versus just, interested in a mini split.
Yeah,
Okay.
just
Like that's vague. Like all right, I'll try to, get information on the heads up call, things like that. So now knowing the position that I'm in, back then, I think I could have greased the wheel a lot better because we're already in the home. We're almost again, just me actually do the sale, but just have that fun, have that guy come in, have that guy. So the pressure's off of the homeowner because they dealt with me, the technician, not the sales guy, really smooth that thing over.
yeah. I'm curious your reaction to this, or if you've heard this before, but kind of like there's a KPI on a close rate of a technician turnover, right? Which is like 75%, 80% close rate. And some companies are like, yeah, no, that sounds about right. And then others are like, what? How is that possible with
I'm
them?
the what?
Okay, yeah. So this basically, if it's a 75, 80% close rate, to me, what I picture, because I come from a basketball background, like an alley-oop. Like it's not even a pass. It is a pure alley-oop, basically at that point. So just to kind of continue this thought, and then we'll kind of switch subjects, because you said you would do things differently. Can you kind of give me some examples of maybe how you would now knowing what you know now, if you're going to come in and run a sales process of how a technician could kind of alley-oop it for the salesperson, or like some specific examples of how that could get set up for the salesperson to come in and have
Yeah.
it your path.
So again, instead of just doing the normal, yep, we'll call our guy, he'll be out here, boom, I'll walk out because I've done what my objective is, like clean the boiler. Instead, I would be training almost the same way you're training us as technicians, asking a lot of questions, figure out a lot of information there on site. So that way too, the homeowner doesn't feel like they have to start a process over again just to get me out there because we already got them engaged in, maybe making a sale. So really, in my opinion, is getting our sales techs now, right? Because there's not a lot of turnover because they're capable of selling.
Yeah.
On that same training. Because right now what we do is I can tell you, I can show you the numbers. Our techs are they're just throwing a number on the wall. Like, okay, you're interested in replacing your AC. Here's the quote. Instead of being trained and be like, okay, well, I get it. I'm here. Here's what our issues are, but what other issue down the road? Has anybody talked about your ductwork? I'm your first guy up in your attic in 10 years. The same way you would train us, really. And I think that would smooth that process out for when I'm there. Because then, they dealt with who they wanted to. They dealt with the technician. They dealt with the guy with the dirt on his jeans,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Like,
Yeah, I love this because I do know a lot of technicians listen to this who aren't the selling tech and they turn the lead over. And I'm glad we're talking about this because I think that is just a massive skill that gets overlooked.
yeah.
Because there's like, well, it's not
Also
my
just
problem.
being technician versus can we wear all hats in the home to just smooth everything out?
Yeah.
You're now you're a provider. Let's provide.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so you're coming out, in that comfort consultant role, and you're going to run an estimate for somebody, right? And it may be, again, the way that you get this is, a technician might turn it over, or it's just somebody contacts the company, right? Hey, I'm thinking I need to replace my new system, or maybe they know I want to do this. I've already had a few estimates, right? And they kind of want to see what you would do. Whatever the reason is, you're going to go out there. Talk a little bit about how you approach, like from a process standpoint, like kind of what are your objectives when you get there and get into the house, and also a little bit how has that changed kind of over the years of doing this.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I'll explain early on, but for numbers perspective, I would say 98% are just proactive marketed leads.
Okay.
really marketing. And in our industry, we do a lot of mini splits up here, right? Because AC is not prevalent like it is down south.
Mhm.
So now it is. These last few summers have really gotten hotter and hotter. So AC is very prevalent. So again, I don't get a lot of the turnovers. Wish I did.
Yeah.
But I do a lot of the proactive marketed leads. It's me versus five others, whatever it is. So in the early years, I just did what probably normal people do when they come out of install, right? Try to just show my experience, try to show my knowledge of what it takes to install something, thinking I'm going to go up against five guys who used to be car salesmen.
Sure.
Not quite the case anymore. A lot of companies are building from within. I'm probably not the only previous installer who's now trying to sell you a system. So in the early years, I thought that worked for me. I would say now, in my opinion, with the marketing change, prices going up, things like that, I'm trying to heavily focus more on the process. By process, I mean what we're trying to learn here with SBA. So I'm trying to get really good at the heads up call, really trying to get that down. No more just ETA, because what does that do for anything? Um, Especially Lewis, my coach, is really trying to work on the kind of grab you a drink, little things like that, just to sound different, because everyone does
Yeah.
the same thing. Be there in a half hour, click, we're done. So it's gearing up that heads up call, getting as much information as that phone call will allow, um, doing some homework beforehand. That to me, I can feel like has already been, before you even get to the door, I can tell by that call, it seems different.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a big fan of everything that you're saying there, and that's something that I was trying to stress. Both of those things: prepare, like do some prep work.
Yep. I,
Show up prepared.
not to cut you off, Derek, but just the fact alone, and I didn't always do this, and I wasn't smart. Just the simple Zillow, you know how many people's like, ears perked up when I said, "Now your home's about 2,800 square feet, right?" Or something like that, because then it already greases that, like, the heat loss, the sizing. I've done some homework on your home already. That alone, and I don't say that portion. Maybe I should during the call. I'll wait until I'm face to face, just so I can see that
Mhm.
reaction and really let them know on that. But I'll still grease it like, hey, I've done some homework here on your home, look some stuff up. So
Yeah, like I said, I love that, and I think homeowners are, you talk about things change, like, so, your processing's change, but homeowners change too, right? And that's also why, like, the process needs to change. And I feel like from the homeowners perspective, there's like this, just lowering of standards, lowering of care, lowering of quality. So I just feel like the bar is so low, I think, for a lot of the homeowners. And when the bar is low, that means there's a lot of opportunities to raise the bar. And I just feel like so many companies and comfort consultants and technicians miss those opportunities to raise the bar because they're just doing what everyone else does.
half-hour call, number on a piece of paper, maybe a week later, like, and
Yeah,
I'll get to that after the quoting on site. My mistake for not doing it for
a
years.
big one too.
Yeah, we'll get to that whenever you feel like talking
Yeah,
about it.
no, that's a
That
big
for
one
me is
too.
just been,
Yeah,
you know,
but no, I just think you're right. So I think when you actually do prepare, it's really frustrating as the homeowner to have a salesperson show up or a technician be like, "Hey, so why am I here?" They spoke to somebody at your office,
and they
right?
think that they relayed enough information that just simply they feel like didn't get to me.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
like, oh, we gotta, right. And so hopefully, the person intaking that appointment or, the phone call, like, asked a series of questions, collected a lot of info. Um, and then if there's no acknowledgement of that, that for one is really frustrating, right? Yeah. And like you said, there's so many resources available. There's Zillow, there's a lot of counties will have like floor plans available, online or blueprints. And I just think one of the most powerful phrases to say to a homeowner is, "I've already gotten started on your project." That's just like a sense of relief, I think, to the homeowner of, oh, finally a professional. Oh, so you're there, you're doing all that. Okay, so now you're there at the house. Tell me about now. You did your call ahead. You got in the front door. You're there at the house. Kind of in your mind now, what is the objective? Ultimately, you're going to give them a quote. We'll talk about that and all that. But before we get there, kind of now, time with the homeowner. What's kind of your game plan?
yeah. Again, over the last few weeks, biggest thing I don't try to do right now is just jump to why I'm there. That's already covered is why I'm there. It's a mini split. Like
Yeah.
again, we asked a series of questions and we know, but ultimately at the end of the day, they're looking for 5 different quotes on mini splits. And so I'm there for a mini split. So I
Yeah.
don't even try to focus on mini split. Like just focus on the home, them, questions, comfortability, things like that, that type of stuff. Because the mini split's going to solve that. And it's going to solve that at the end. So I really just, I'm trying my best to just not talk, ask questions, get out of that old school. I'm going to blow your socks off with my install, you know, install background. Is really just trying to figure out the home, comfortability, who's in the home. Like that, I try to hammer that right, like so much is who's in the home. Are all parties going to be, making this decision? Should we be talking to everybody? Who's your favorite child? Because we want to make sure we take care of them. Just ask those questions more. Where again, I thought I was asking questions, but I wasn't. I was doing talking. That is
Yeah.
to me the biggest. And that, by the way, that gobbles up that time.
Mm.
Just like this thing's supposed to run smooth. Like after an hour, the homeowner's like, oh goodness, well, what brand do we sell? Like, well, yeah, we'll get, you know what I mean? So the hour goes by much faster. The hour and a half goes much smoother because I'm getting to the crux and information of why I actually am there.
Yeah.
It's not just a mini split, cold or hot. It's,
Right.
I'm tired
Yeah.
of the window unit being right next to me. That's important information because I don't want to put the mini split that's an air system in the same spot.
Yeah. Well, it'd be like, relating it to like the automobile industry. Like they just want a car. They want to drive from here to there. But no, like there's so many different types of cars and how you do it. And, like, yeah, it relates to the person, right? People, like some people care about how it looks. Some people don't, how it runs. Some people don't,
Absolutely. That's
right?
what the most. I deal with type of homeowners up here where the aesthetics crazily matter more than the comfort. At some point I'm asking like, hey, which one's 51%, which one's 49%? Because we gotta find a way to build here. Because I can help you with both, but
Yeah.
yeah, crazy.
Some people drive horribly efficient vehicles, horrible miles per gallon because of the aesthetic of how cool, right, the vehicle is. People make decisions for different reasons, right? So,
Love our Chevy Silverados.
yeah, that's right. People make decisions for different reasons. Or some people want, super high efficiency and it looks really ugly. That's true, right? So it's you don't know until you start figuring out
And yeah,
how they're gonna make their decision on
especially if I can achieve it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you find, attention is something that's hard to get from your homeowners? Like, is there, like, when one of my main attention is the expectation? Because again, like I said, I think the bar is pretty low as far as like the standard and things like that. And potentially you're the third person there, the fourth person there on an estimate. They've already experienced kind of how a few other people, do you run into where they're like, hey, that's over there, that's over there. Come get me
Love,
when you need me.
love being second, third, fourth. And you want to know why you get that for the first 10 minutes, especially if, again, even if you greased the wheel on the phone call, you did a good heads up, you're still going to get that eye to eye. But you just nailed it. It's probably realistically because I'm the third or fourth person in. And all three of them said the same thing, walking into the door. What do you want? Pointed at the same wall. And it might be the best wall for a mini split, but let's have a discussion. Like I don't have to do what somebody else did.
Yeah.
I would say when I'm third, fourth, fifth, whatever the number is, I really get that cold shoulder early. It's because you just said it. They heard the same thing the last 3 times.
Yeah. I think they got trained in a way, to how a poorly run estimate goes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so then they think I'm just going to be the fourth, and they'd be like, "All right, we'll measure that wall, make sure there's enough space."
Yeah.
The outdoors got to go right underneath my bedroom window. Well, not necessarily.
Yeah. I've repeated this many, many times when I've taught different trainings and when I've coached, with different people of if everything is the same, the homeowner should choose the lowest price, right? If everything is exactly the same, why wouldn't you choose the lowest price? And so if you don't have the lowest price solution, or maybe the homeowner doesn't even want the lowest price solution, they want the right solution, you have to do things differently. You have to have a different process if you want to be able to get kind of like a different decision out of the homeowner. But yeah, if estimates 1, 2, 3, 4, ask the exact same questions, propose the exact same solutions. I don't blame the consumer for just picking the lowest price.
We all know what the questions are too. Like anybody in this industry. So it's not even good questions on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
Especially when
just
talking about if it doesn't matter if it's conventional AC you're replacing or if you're a mini split company like we are. The, those 4 questions, they all sound the same because they're all the most generic and used for 20 plus years in this industry questions. Like they're not even questions at this point. They're stuff that homeowners already know,
yeah.
you know?
And they're it's likely too that the answers to those generic questions don't actually influence the outcome overall.
No, they're like, well, I already know my answer to this as a
Yeah.
homeowner, you know,
Right.
more time I'm hearing this.
Yeah. So preparing differently, showing up differently, asking different questions. Okay, so now let's talk about closing. So we kind of tabled it for a second. So you kind of had a light bulb or it's a life-changing thing right now about your what delivering quotes in the house.
Yeah. So for the longest time, again, because of the talking, over talking, thinking if I can give 4 options, hopefully one of them sticks versus actually nailing, all 4 might be missing one key component within all 4 options. So to do that on site, I always felt like it was just a lot of wasted computer time,
Yeah.
think quiet. They start wandering off. I'm by myself. So no, I say, okay, give me 24 hours, which I am good about that, like getting the quotes
Yeah.
out from us at that time. But now, in my opinion, it's more or less based on all the information that I've gathered, having a good conversation with you. Like Lewis will say again, I'm going to name drop him a bit because he's been unreal.
Shout out
But
to Coach
here's the
Lewis.
solution.
Yeah.
Here's the solution. It's not even a quote. Like this is the solved all of your problems. And now I get to do that on site because I just nailed down one option. And heck, if there's a conversation that leads into a second one, but then I'm there. Laptop's still up, but your solution is within this. Let's go over this because it's essentially what you asked for.
Yeah.
That
I
is then the biggest thing.
yeah, I love this. And this is controversial, too. Like just like Lewis, this is something that I talk about in like this different trainings and things like that of why do we give good, better, best to somebody? Why? Let's actually like break this down. Like, why do we do that? Versus this is your solution.
I can answer that because I was
Go for it.
hoping that one of them sticks.
We're trying to cast the
You're
wide
not going to
net.
go with the 20 SEER that's $17,000. Maybe then you just look at that $12,000 13 SEER, and as long as they get the sale, I get it.
Yeah.
But what the homeowner seeing is 3 different discrepancies. Knowing
Yeah.
that
And
full of junk.
if you're the 4th person there and you all gave good, better, best, now they have 12 estimates to look at. It's making it harder. It's making life harder. I know this is a controversial hot take, right? But yeah, I just think like a good, better, best. There's a place for that, but I think it says we're trying to refine the solution, not as the solutions, because I just feel like with a good, better, best, it's a wide net, and we didn't actually ask enough questions to figure out what is the right solution for them. So is that kind of like the evolution of your process, your thinking on it?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Then I'm stuck at home each night trying to help my wife with my two kids, try to get 4 quotes done for 3 different people. So again, at the end of the day, same as me, I'm creating 12 quotes, between 7:30 and 9:30, once I get the kids to bed. So
Yeah. And just
that's not smooth for anybody either.
the confusion too, between even if they like you, like your company, want to go with you, like the confusion too on which of the 3 to go with. Okay, yeah. So this is good stuff. Yeah, and I love that of like basically the ability to say, "Hey, I've asked you a ton of questions. I know you've been so patient. Thanks for sharing all that info, but I've been able to assimilate it, and this is the solution."
I mean, as soon as I got back from Nashville, I took the first, got back on a Thursday. That Friday and Monday was really just shutting up, working on that process throughout. Then Tuesday, when I talked to Lewis, went 3 for 3 on that Tuesday, quote on site, bought on site. And now I can look back at it and be like, I only gave 3 quotes. You know what I mean? I didn't give 2 options to call number 1. No, just 3 quotes.
Yeah, that's so good. You've referenced a couple, just for people listening, you've referenced we ran a comfort consultant class a few weeks ago in Nashville, Tennessee, right? We the previous episode that airs with Joey, for those that listen to that episode, he was in that class. I know he went on like a hot streak after that class. I talked to someone else in Tennessee and they went like 5 for 5 after that class. And so it's just, in some ways though, it's not asking you to do more. Like you're saying, like it's to refine down. Because think about the homeowner experience. If you have a company come out and like, well, you could do this, or you could do this, or you could do this. That's I don't know how helpful that is to a homeowner versus helping them walk through all the possibilities and then arriving at a solution. I think it's a different way of thinking about it.
One little thing too, as a tool, I mean, I'm sure everybody does, but when I leave first thing in the morning, I tell Sheila, my coordinator, hey, my goal is to go 3 for 3. Regardless, getting the quotes out, keep either your phone on you or something, because one of the biggest things that helped me with that, again, not even using this tool, is giving them dates right then and there. Like just everything, what I'm showing them is everything's buttoned up. You don't have to worry about a dang thing. Our office is already taking care of permits. Once you press the accept button here, we just put you on the schedule. So you're going to beat the heat, things like that. But it's quoting on site. Yes. It's that whole process of buttoning everything up.
Yeah.
That way they're not waiting a week for a quote. Then from there, waiting for us to reach out and say, hey, if you want to move forward, we can get you in 3 weeks from then.
Yeah.
It's taken care of.
I love this too, because it's making your life easier. It's making your life, more of a set process, but I keep like advocating for the homeowners experience in this. It's just making their life so much easier. And I just think like there's a lot of things that we do to ourselves, a delay in giving somebody, info or an estimate opens the door to filling that time with more estimates too. Cause they're like, well, if I got to wait a week anyway, well, why not call a few more companies and get a few more?
I don't even estimates, yes, but also just the thoughts of like, well, do I want to do this year? I'm just giving them more time to talk themselves out of spending the, whatever the money is that the quote was or will.
Yeah. No, the flame is never hotter than at the moment it gets lit, right? And then as you move time from that, they're gonna, just life happens too, or different things happen and other priorities and focuses come up. And it's just, there's very few other things I think where you go to find out what it costs and you get told you have to wait.
I'd like to share one thing.
Yeah.
Like why this works is on that Tuesday when we're after it. I still remember this specifically, my 9 a.m. because that's when really the light bulb hit me like, what the hell have I been doing for all these years? Is I'm with a younger couple. We go through everything. We're having the discussion. We're talking. They were essentially told no for one of their rooms. The room was their baby son's room, as a nursery, is a crib. And they were told, we can't, other than this specific unit that would have mucked up everything from an aesthetic standpoint, mini split, we can't do anything. When they told me that, I don't know if anybody else has mini split. I was like, what about ceiling unit? And they're like, what do you mean, what about a ceiling unit? I'm like, let me show you. And this is how we install it. Keeps this showcase corner nice and clean. It's why it's our number 1 seller. But more importantly, that after we get through all that got their wheels spinning, they loved it. All quotes were going to have that system. When I started quoting out the option for what we're calling phase 1, second floor, I started quoting that out. The wife looked at the husband with a question, and then the husband literally said out loud, he's like, well, they missed their opportunity. They were here last week. We still haven't gotten a quote. But they literally said that. So now it makes me wonder, I'm like, dang, how many people quoted on site over these years? I didn't even realize I missed out because they were the 2:00 call and they didn't want to wait for me overnight to send a quote out. You don't know this, but could be a percentage of it. And just when I heard that, I was like, this is why we should all be doing this. He literally just said out loud, they lost their shot, regardless of what their price would have been. He wasn't even willing, to see or see if it would have been cheap or anything like that.
Yeah. That's such a good example. there. I think of just the value of this. So just that's exciting, right? All these things kind of coming together. You're updating your process. You're kind of dialing this in. There's another aspect of that of, someone might be listening to this and be like, I would love to quote on site, but we don't have the technology or the capability. So like a number of things have to come together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Got to be comfortable. Like, luckily, I've been building quotes forever, so that's still not hard whether it's on site. So I know my system. I know where everything is. I know what's accurate.
yeah. So a lot of pieces, support system around you that allows for that, right? And then there's a whole other conversation, here too about now, how soon can you as a company get it installed?
Yeah, because that's really what they want to know too. Like,
Yeah.
if they see it's going to be 9 to 8 next week, that really is one of their most important questions, which helps me because then money's really not a thing. Comfort, we just nailed it. Comfort's the thing. Like, let's see what we can do to move out, especially if you really reach out and really dive into find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
Pete's really good about that. You know what? You just told me that. I'll give you 2 of my commercial guys. We'll treat them like they're installers because they're capable of doing it. And then we just blew, again, I'll say for the segment, blew the socks off that person because we got in there within a week or 2.
Yeah. This is just kind of speaking around this question, but, we were talking about the generic type of question versus like asking better questions. So I feel like and if I were to list like the generic type of questions, I think one of them is like a time question around the decision. Like when do you plan on making your decision? I think that's, to me, is like one of the generic questions that everybody asks. And so I think homeowners recognize that and they put up a defense on that question where they try to be like, I don't know, we got to look at quote, like they try not to answer it. So instead, the question I like is, when do you want this whole project to be completed by? So that you move the time question from decision oriented, which I think we're all wired to not answer. And instead you move it to a future state where I'm comfortable. I don't have to deal with this. The stress is over. Because now I think for the person, they want that as soon as possible.
Yep.
And so it made me think of it in this thing, because that's a coordination of getting the quote, getting it installed. It's a whole logistics type of thing, right? Of when do you want this all, like when do you just want to be over this and not have to deal with it? Like, what are we talking about there? And I just think that's a different question that homeowners get asked.
Yeah.
Okay, Josh, I know we've been talking for a bit. You've got systems to sell today and people to help. Is there anything you left unsaid or anything else you want to either reiterate or leave our audience with before I let you go?
Trust the process. I don't, a simpler way to say that, anybody who has hesitation, but then at the same time wonder why their numbers aren't where they are or why the close rate doesn't seem as good as it is, trust that process and work on it. Not everything's going to be a win. That there's still going to be a percentage of people, but just trust it, I guess, would be the only thing, because it would be doing something different than what you're used to. And if what you've been used to doing isn't helping your close rate of those numbers, then it's time to switch it up.
I love that. It's simple. It's, in concept, it's simple, right? Just do the process. But as you know,
work on it. Yeah.
But as you know, it's inside our own heads too, right? Well, no, if I ask that question, they're going to allow, all those worries inside of our head go along.
I said to Lewis, it's like you're half hour in. It's almost like a dog being trained with like the treat on its nose, and it just wants to go at it.
Yeah.
Just can't go at it until it's time, until everything, all the information's on the table, everything's there. And then again, when I say go at it, I don't mean then for the next hour, go over stuff. Just then it's create it and go over what they want, essentially.
Yeah. I love that. Josh, thanks so much for sharing with us.
You got it, Derek. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Trusted Technician Podcast. If you would like to learn more about SBE, you can find us online at sbeodyssey.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, we would appreciate it if you would leave us a review. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.